Interesting game we're talking. We're going to talk about the Fail Mary today. Craig Karmazin, Mark Chimura joining me today. And I'm going to talk about this game, not just because Packer fans hate this game, but because at ESPN Milwaukee, back in 2012, there was a contest called the Techterior Takeover, where the winner of this contest that I think we ran over the summer, because this was only week 3 of the season.
Yeah.
Where they got a makeover of their man cave in their house.
Right.
And everybody from the station except for Chewy. Did you guys spend the night at his house?
So the premise was this company, Techteriors, was like, we'll make over your house. We'll do all that. So we said, all right, let's just do the Techteriors takeover, where on Friday, they come to your house. Saturday, Sunday, they redo whatever room you have. And then we, as ESPN Milwaukee, come over and take over your house on Monday. We do the shows from there. And then we sleep over your house. And then Chewy and I will do Tuesday morning's radio show from your actual house. So that was the premise. And it kind of worked that way. But this game ended up being so wild. I don't know, Chewy, I know you don't remember a lot of things, but we did our show the next day from their house. And all the local TV stations were coming to interview us. And by us, I mean Chewy. Because this big game had happened and they wanted someone to be able to talk about these replacement refs, what this means to the Packers. Because remember, at this time, Packers are coming off a Super Bowl and then a 15-1 season. And now the Packers are 1-2 and have lost this insane game on Monday night.
First, let me set the record straight. I was going to stay over until they told me that there was one bed left. So me and Craig would have had to share the bed.
I brought a sleeping bag.
I didn't know if he was bringing his dog, who I had to sleep with in Cleveland one time. And the dog has the worst breath in the world.
Allegedly bad breath.
I stayed at home.
Not allegedly. That's documented bad breath. And I wouldn't say my breath was the best either. I've worked on that since.
Yeah.
But we ended up getting... I had sleeping bags. I slept in a sleeping bag on their floor.
Did anybody sleep on the couch anywhere?
I don't remember who else slept over
how did
that
we,
night.
How do we pack? I can't imagine Homer spending the night at this guy's house.
There were a lot of people spending the night. I remember I spent the first half there and watched the game, and it was a horrible first half. And then went home. Of course, didn't watch the rest of the next morning, but showed up at 6:30 at the house to do a 7 a.m. show.
It's good to know 11 years later, he's still doing the same things. If it's a primetime game, he's going to bed at halftime.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I just remember the Packers, because they'd lost to the Giants in the playoffs, but they still had this unstoppable offense.
Oh yeah.
Right? At the time, I don't even think they had any running backs, but they had an unstoppable offense. But Seattle was, that was I don't know if that was prime Seattle defense, but that was certainly when Seattle's defense was starting to establish themselves.
Yeah, their defense was starting to come together. They would win the Super Bowl the next year in 13, go to the Super Bowl in 14. But Russell Wilson is a rookie in this game. This is his 3rd game. Matt Flynn.
So that's, I was thinking it's 2nd year Russell Wilson.
No, so Matt
you're
Flynn.
Right, because that year, so you had Andrew Luck as the overall number 1 pick. Now, the 2 most prolific rookie quarterbacks in that draft end up being Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins.
I didn't know.
Still playing in the NFL today.
Right? Same draft. Yeah. And RG3, though, actually beats all 3 of those guys. Beats Luck, Cousins, and Russell Wilson as Offensive Rookie of the Year. Because I think the R words at the time, I think they won the division, and he was pretty darn good.
Did they go to the playoffs? Did the Redskins go to the playoffs?
They did. Yes. Didn't they
as a wild
beat
card?
The Giants or the Cowboys week 16?
Yeah.
I don't know if they were.
Yeah, they were a wild card team. Yeah, and I think he had RG3 had a huge game that kind of locked up.
Totally.
But you look at that offense. It still had Finley at tight end.
Mm-hmm.
I like how Chewy starts with the tight end. Look, he's I'm not sure. I don't know if it was Favre or Rodgers, but I know who the tight end was.
Okay, the backup tight end was
Williams.
They had Jones, they had Jordy, they had Cobb, they had Driver. They didn't have a running back. They had Cedric Benson, but they were stacked. The year after
Cedric Benson, did someone get hurt?
That
wasn't or was that the plan going into the year?
I think that was the plan going into the year. They had signed Cedric Benson. I completely forgot that Cedric Benson was on this team until I started watching this game.
Tell Craig who the leading rusher. I guarantee you can't guess who the leading rusher that year was for the Packers.
So Benson would only end up playing 5 games for the Packers. So it's not Cedric Benson. I'll tell you that.
12 steak dinners. All right, because you owe me 13. I will put 12 on the table right now if you can tell me who the leading rusher was that year.
I mean, the only ones I would go with are like I don't know, was it Aaron Rodgers somehow?
It was not Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
It was not Aaron Rodgers.
Give me a hint.
I believe he went to Hawaii.
Oh, God.
Not Sam Condon.
No. He's kind of light skinned.
Sure. That works for you. We're at 4 now. It went from 12 state tenders down to 4.
Rhymes with
Green.
Yeah.
Rhymes with Green.
Yeah. Alex
Alex
Green
yes.
was the leading rusher for the Packers in 2012. Didn't get a snap in this game because Cedric Benson was. It was tough to watch Cedric Benson run in this game. As you pointed out, like he had like a 7-yard run. Like, why did he go down so easy?
Dude, in this game, legitimately, like the offensive line just gets battered, right? Like, so there's been a few games in Packers history where you can remember, like, oh my God, I remember, like, I think it was like Tausch's first start against the Bears. Was that on Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football?
Yeah, something like that.
Where, like, they were, like, just killing. I mean, this was one of those games where the Packers don't score a single point in the first half.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about that offense that Chewy just said. You go scoreless in the first half with that offense, which I don't think you could all completely blame on either on either the Seahawks defense or the replacement refs. But I know the replacement refs were the topic at the time.
But 8.5 sacks in the first half. And you still had Balaga at right tackle, and I believe Clifton was at left tackle.
Marshall Newhouse started that game. Clifton may have been still around, but Newhouse started that game. But Jeff Saturday was playing center.
Jeff Saturday playing center. But still, 8.5 sacks is
in the first half. I mean, and I don't think there were any in the second half, but still.
No, there weren't any in the second half. Rodgers very clearly decided to just get rid of the ball anytime he was under duress. He was done getting hit in that game, but they just got battered. So they had lost a game earlier in the season. They're 1-1, and now all of a sudden they're going to halftime down 7-0. The offense was just in shambles.
No, the fact that it's only 7-0 isn't that surprising, right? Because then you're like, all right, I know they had Marshawn Lynch and all that, but the Seahawks at the time didn't have great receivers, and
Sidney
Russell
Rice
Wilson,
and Golden Tate.
Right.
And
Russell's a rookie.
Yeah.
He's a rookie who you weren't thinking that much of, right? I mean, we all did, but globally, I mean, he wasn't the phenomenon that Russell Wilson ultimately becomes.
Is this the game where kind of Wisconsin, because Wisconsin was in love with Russell Wilson? Because in 2011, season before, and they kind of talked about this, Gruden and Tirico talked about it during the game, of how Russell came in, he's on campus for a month, gets named a captain, and that 2011 team is pretty beloved. Had J.J. Watt not come out a year early, we're talking potential national championship contenders. It's one of the most fun offenses Wisconsin's ever had.
I still think that was a national championship team.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look back, I mean, they lose to Ohio State and Michigan State, ironically, on like
Hail Mary type situations.
Passes. I mean, Russell Wilson had that team, and I know they end up losing the bowl game, right, in a similar, tough fashion at the end, but they were that good. But I think people at the time were that big on Russell Wilson that people literally after the end, they're like, I think Russell's going to come out and say they don't deserve it, and the Packers are going to end up getting the game.
But then,
but they didn't know he was going to be more than a game manager, because is that when Flynn went there, signed a big deal, and Flynn did not do well in camp.
Correct.
Yeah, Russell did pretty good, but they didn't know what.
But I'm just
going to be Russell.
I think that the state of Wisconsin was enamored with Russell Wilson because of what he did the year before.
Sure.
And yes, I think Craig was right. There were people in Wisconsin.
Russell, wait, he hasn't done his press conference. He's going to come out and say they don't deserve it, and the Packers are still going to win.
But Russell came out and said nope. And to this day, we'll tell you that Golden Tate caught that pass instead of M.D. Jennings. I think this is the game that the state of Wisconsin turned out.
Just like Jerry Rice didn't fumble, right?
Jerry Rice did fumble in that game.
Yeah, of course, and that's why we have replay, and that's why there was replay in that game, because there were a couple calls that the replacement refs missed, but they weren't bad. The replacement refs were not bad in the first half
until it got to the second half,
because the game became so tight back and forth that they kind of choked.
I believe the final tally, and this doesn't include obviously the Fail Mary, and there were a couple of overturned calls and with replay toward the end of the game for the Packers' lone touchdown, but 24 penalties for, I believe, 245 yards combined in the game.
But let me ask you this, because I was thinking about this earlier. Let's say you guys are high school refs and you're the lead ref.
Yep.
And they said, college refs, MAC, are going on strike. You guys have to go ref Ball State versus Bowling Green. Do you tell your guys, let them play, or do you say, let's call everything? Because they obviously, the second half went with, let's call everything. Where they probably should have went with, let them play. Who cares? If we get booed, it's got to be an egregious penalty in order to call it.
I don't know, but remember, this is week 3. So it's not like this is week
No,
1 of replacement refs. So, like, you would think they would have felt that out in weeks 1 and 2 by that point.
Yeah. But, I mean, some of those pass interference calls were bad. I mean, the one to Finley that they called on Chancellor was not pass interference. And then I said the get even call was the one on Sam Shields.
Yeah, where they called
because they were both because Finley's was a 3rd or a 4th down play, which kept the drive alive.
It was a 3rd down play, kept the drive alive, allowed the Packers to eventually get into the end or set up a field goal, I believe.
Right, that cut it to 7-6.
Yeah, yes. And then you have Sam Shields late in the game. He's just got perfect position against Sidney Rice.
Yeah.
Following the football, and he somehow gets called for pass interference. Like the refs completely took over the second half of the game.
Can we talk about Cedric Benson some more?
yes, we can.
I mean, it's
please.
The most fascinating thing about this is there was literally a carry in the game where, like, the offensive line, which is getting battered, the offense is getting battered. He burst through, and it's like he's got 5 yards untouched. And it was like there was something in his contract that, like, when you hit 5 yards, you got to fall. Like, it ended up being like a 6.5 yard gain. Yeah. There wasn't anyone within yards of him.
I don't know if there was something wrong with Cedric Benson.
No, but they did. The announcers, if you listen back to it, the announcers say, "Hey, Rodgers," because Rodgers must have said something in the air like, "We don't need to run the ball," because the announcer said something to the fact that, "Mr. Rodgers, yes, you may have to run the ball." So this might have been their mindset.
Well, the year before, again, they were untouchable, right? That 2011 offense is that still the best offense in Packers history?
Yeah.
I mean, that 15-1 year coming off the Super Bowl.
We were pretty good.
In terms of points scored.
It's
a different league.
Yeah, statistically. Yeah. No, you're saying 96 or 90. One of those years may have been the best offense ever.
That was pretty good offense.
Yeah.
I mean, they were stacked.
I'm saying because you guys, when you had you and Keith Jackson.
And then Robert Eves and Free.
All healthy at the same time?
And then Dorsey
for half
and Edgar. That's pretty
Did you
good.
ever have all those people together that you just said?
For the first 6 games until Robert got hurt against San Francisco.
Because then they brought in Andre Rison.
Right.
After Robert got hurt.
Right. So it's either with Brooks or with Rison, basically.
Correct.
That year.
Yes.
What's the thing about Cedric Benson? Watching him run was painful. He ran if there was one leg longer than the other because he would constantly just throw a shoulder down just as part of his natural gait. It was
but isn't
it wasn't
unfair?
smooth.
Now we're hey, running backs are only going to be good for this many years. I feel hit Texas, he probably had 450 yards. I feel he 450 carries a game. Because he was he broke all of Ricky Williams' records. I feel and Ricky Williams has the all-time record, and he somehow broke all his records. So by the time he got the NFL, he was 35 by the time running back years.
I can't wait till Gabe gets old. I'm probably gonna leave here and see. Hey, you see Chewy walk here? He walks
seriously though. Cedric Benson.
He's old. He's just old.
Then why are you getting him a football?
He was only 26. I mean, he was 26.
26. All right.
But in running back years, he'd be 43.
Yeah, of course.
What are running back years like? Because there's dog years, so it's running back years. You play 1 year in the NFL. If you're a quarterback, it's 1 year in the NFL.
Jonathan Taylor is done now, right?
He's in his prime.
You can't commit to Jonathan Taylor.
His 3rd year.
He's got. Think how many hits he's taken between all college and 2 years in the NFL. Oh, he's done.
But the benchmark was always 30. Once a running back hit 30. You were done. I mean, and then Adrian Peterson comes along and blows that up.
I feel Curtis Martin. Those guys.
Speaking of Adrian Peterson, this year ran for 2,000 yards coming off of a torn ACL. But I mean, coming out of this game, so the Packers end up scoring a touchdown. They go for 2. They tried. I feel like we didn't make this big of a deal about it at the time, but. Because the NFL has 2 different balls. They have the K ball, and then they have the game balls that each team uses. So on the 2-point conversion, I don't know if the replacement officials didn't realize they were just going to kick the extra point or what they're going to do, but Rodgers had a K ball, so the ball kind of slipped as he tried to throw a 2-point conversion pass. I feel like that just got brushed under the rug of Rodgers making the excuse, the ball was slippery, that's why I threw a bad ball on the 2-point
Did it
conversion.
really matter, though?
Yeah, it's the whole game.
Yeah, if they
Well,
get
what did they wind up winning by?
if they go for the 2-point conversion
Then
and get it, it's 14-7, and the Hail Mary only ties it to send it to
ties it.
overtime.
Okay. It's a football. Throw the damn thing. You
I
know?
knew that was coming.
I didn't catch the ball because it's raining out. You guys never have my back when that happened.
I'm just saying, at the time, we didn't make
I don't think you could ever blame. You could ever forget. You have to catch the ball, but when it's a quarterback, you always protect the quarterback.
Of course.
So, yeah,
right.
They're delicate.
Right.
It's
So,
a lot like you, Craig.
Yeah. But do you think that's really the case? Like, do you think knowing how Aaron is, do you think that actually makes the difference? Throwing the K ball versus the regular ball.
I mean, they don't rub those down. We've had this conversation.
Yeah.
The kickers rub down balls.
Yeah. It's
a little different.
Even if it's mentally, right? I mean, think about the whole Tom Brady and
Deflategate.
Yeah, I mean, it matters to these guys however they prepare their balls.
But isn't that K-ball, like, I don't want to say
it's a little more inflated.
It's a little more inflated, but Rodgers is on the record of liking the ball a little bit more inflated. When the whole Deflategate thing went down, he said he liked to kind of push the limits of whatever the legal limit was of the PSI was.
Yeah, I mean, is it end of the world? No, you still got to get it done. I mean, I don't see a big difference as opposed to what if it was raining out? What's he going to do?
Yeah.
Someone stop the rain.
Right, but you know it's raining when it's raining. But in the heart, you're on the road. All this stuff's going on. They hand you the ball. You're about to snap it. You see it's the wrong ball.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to mess with your head in some way.
It probably does. And he probably didn't realize it because he's so hyped up until after the fact. Because it's not like he received the snap and went, oh, I got a kicker ball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He probably went through it and like, I kind of felt a little
weird.
differently and weird, and then checked it out and found it.
But it's one of those little things that probably added into the replacement refs, this being the final that they would officiate.
Yeah.
The Packers defense played well the entire game until like in the fourth quarter. The Seahawks, after the Packers score, they march it down the field. They eventually go for it on fourth down. That's where we were talking about the Sam Shields PI penalty came in. They go for it on fourth and 3 inside the 20. And the Packers get the ball back.
Packers stop on a ball thrown into the end zone. Packers stop.
Yep.
You have the ball under 2 minutes. Under 2 minutes, Packers up by more than a field goal.
Yes.
Seahawks still 3 timeouts left.
And Cedric Benson rears his head once again.
But that wasn't his fault.
The fumble might have been.
The fumble, but the first play of the game where he gets tackled for like a 4-yard loss,
so it looks like he
puts him in a hole.
Yeah, it puts him in a hole. Then he fumbles. Jeff Saturday has to jump on it. So they have to run 2 plays out of the end zone.
Sure.
The last one being a John Kuhn dive to try to give themselves space.
Yeah.
Don't get the space.
Which was effective. You gave him like 2 or 3 yards.
That's the John Kuhn dive play. And they have to punt it back to Seattle. How many people were at this guy's house in his basement when Seattle gets the ball back around midfield with under 50 seconds?
Oh, we're still all there. I mean, there were easily 15, 20 of us because some of their friends were there.
Sure.
I mean, it's like rocking. And at no point, though, did it feel totally safe. Like there was something that felt just like off the whole night. Maybe the 8.5 sacks that Chewy mentioned in the first half. Like, because this was an offense we were used to seeing dominate. So never did it feel safe. But also with that team, never did you feel like they were really going to lose. Like, because they didn't lose a lot of games, right? This was still early Aaron Rodgers where you're like, this guy's going to win 5-6 Super Bowls, right? This guy just won a Super Bowl already as a 6 seed or whatever. And then it's a fluke that, they lose to the Giants as a 1 seed, right? So you're thinking they're definitely going to win this game. And literally the Seahawks get the ball back. Russell Wilson throws that pass. It's intercepted. It gets reviewed, and you're like, okay, thank God, because these referees are so bad. But now they'll review it, and we're all good. And I still remember it when they said, I mean, the game was over. Like, you just couldn't believe it. I mean, throwing things. I mean, it was violent. I mean, people chose violence in that moment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which is good because you were probably in the demo phase of the rebuild, which was okay.
Yeah, Tectier needed to retake over the house after the TV was shattered.
But I guarantee this. I guarantee McCarthy went in the next day or the day after because it was on the West Coast and watched film and just went through all the times they could have put the game away, and they didn't. Everyone gets so caught up in that last play of the game, but a good coach and Holmgren would do it. And I, played with McCarthy in Green Bay. He would say, look at the sacks. Look at this. But
when it is the last play like that, is there something where you're like, hey, the league office should be able to just look at this, see it was an interception, see that the Packers won. Because I remember at the time, everyone was like, all right, like, there's no way this is going to stand up. Like, the refs made a mistake, but they're going to bring back the real refs. And when they bring back the real refs, they're going to announce that the Packers won.
Let me ask you
that was
Hold
the
on,
other
let me ask you
delusional
this,
thing.
though. What if the game was in Green Bay?
What would the refs have done? Or
Interception.
what would have happened?
No, what would the refs have done?
Interception.
So you think...
No way!
The ref...
No,
yes.
you're wrong.
I think
if that game was in Green Bay, played out exactly the way it was, and Green Bay picks it off at the end of the game, the refs rule in favor of the Packers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Called. That's what an interception would be.
I just wasted a minute of your life.
That's what I'm saying. I think the
interception is when the team that doesn't throw
Gotcha.
Yeah. But, I mean, if that call happened, I mean, Green Bay Packers fans have as good a reputation as any fan base for being loyal, for being whatever, not violent toward. I don't know what Lambeau Field would have done when you think about alcohol consumption, when you think about all that. If that happens in Green Bay and they call it a touchdown, I mean, that place is up for
Cleveland again.
Craig, you bring up the two great delusions from this game that I kind of forgot about. That everyone thought Russell Wilson was going to be like, oh, no, we don't deserve this. The Packers actually beat us. And that the league was going to come in on Tuesday or Wednesday and overturn everything.
See, I kind of thought that.
And give the win to the Packers.
I was there. I was in that delusion. I mean, it was so obvious to me.
I was in both those delusions.
But I don't remember this. Did that play cause the NFL to say, all right, replacement refs need to go away?
So the next week, the Packers played the Saints at home.
And with replacement refs. Because they had already announced it, I think. I thought they had announced that the refs were coming back, but they didn't actually come back till week 5, is what I thought.
I feel, because I know they played the Saints the next week, and I feel it was one of the officials that everybody recognized ran out onto the field, and the officials got a standing ovation from the Green Bay crowd that the regular refs were back. Like, it was that entire week of between the Hail Mary and when the Packers played the Saints in week 4 was just so much discourse about
you're exactly right.
The replacement officials.
Resulted in the use of replacement officials through week 3 of the 2012 NFL season.
Yeah. Hail Mary was the last of it.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I forgot.
So that was a big impact of that game. But bigger than that is the entire season ends up being shaped by that game. And I know, like Chewy said, you'd be like, oh, well, you could have won this other game. You could have won this other game, all that. Packers end up a half game behind the 49ers that year in the standings.
Yeah.
So that ends up shaping the whole year because Colin Kaepernick ends up, and maybe if they came to
him to death.
Well, so Jason tells the story of, because the 49ers didn't run a lot of zone read, with Kaepernick, even though he was super athletic during the regular season. They installed it during their bye week because they were the number 2 seed. So the Packers had to go to San Francisco after defeating Minnesota at home. And during that week, while the Packers were getting ready to play Joe Webb and the Vikings, you had San Francisco going, oh, we think we can run this against Green Bay, and it worked to perfection. Had to play in the wild card game, they don't get to install.
Right, so Packers beat the Seahawks. They would have had the bye instead.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. Assuming the 49ers still win, they come to Green Bay and probably still beat them like they have like 18 others during the postseason.
But the third delusion from this game, we can hold on to that one because no one can prove it.
Yeah, when we played Denver in Super Bowl 32, if this happened and they called my number more, we would have won.
Dude, I feel like you were targeted like 13 times.
In the first half.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things. Jen's kid, like Super Bowl 32 was on like, NFL Network or whatever, and he watched the first half with Jen. He goes, oh, wow, Chewy was really good.
Yeah. And then I text, shut it off. Shut it off at halftime.
You don't need to watch the rest of it. But so much shaped out of that game. But what was your lasting memory, A, of the Tecterior takeover, and B, of the 2012 Hail Mary?
I mean, the thing for me is waking up, no shower, no anything, because you're at this random person's house, and then getting the calls like, hey, WISN Channel 12 wants to come over. And I'm like, yes. There wasn't even a thought of like, we're a mess. This is like, oh my God, this is like the greatest promotion ever. That this game, this is going to launch our whole station. This is going to be unbelievable. And, and of course the Chewy was like, so what happened? Just says Packers win.
Yeah.
Shit.
I realized I could do that for year after year after year.
And
I didn't have to watch the game live.
This was the one instance, though.
Yes.
You may have had to be.
That's when I was like, Chewy, the one thing we know, no matter what happens over the next decade, we'll make sure Chewy never hosts a morning show, so that he never could go do that again, where he goes to sleep and doesn't see the game.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway from that night. Is Chewy should never host a morning show.
I think he just gave me tomorrow off.
Oh boy, I'm going to have to talk to your manager about that.
Right.
Make sure you're here. But it was fun to kind of look back on this game. Fun to look back at the Tech Terriers takeover days. So, boys, thanks for jumping on and reminiscing about 2012 Packers.
The most amazing thing to me is not any of the things we talked about. It's the idea that Aaron Rodgers never made it back to a Super Bowl with the Packers. Like, when we were sitting there that day, you couldn't have told me. Like, if you had told me Aaron Rodgers was going to have another 10 healthy years, which ultimately he did with the Packers, I would have said 4 of a minimum in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know he didn't have every year wasn't healthy in there. There was 1 or 2 and a half, But, I mean, that's the thing that's amazing to me with how good he was for that sustained a period of time, that 2010 of all years as a 6 seed is the one where they actually made it.
And it's not like he fell off. He won 4 MVPs after they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
All 4 of his MVPs came after
What that should tell you, how hard it is to win a Super Bowl.
Right. Well, when you watch Mahomes already, what he's done, like that we can't just assume he's going to win. And I know Mahomes looks at that and is like, if Aaron Rodgers, if I've already won more than him, this thing is hard. But, you can't take it for granted.
Try living with being a 12-point favorite for the rest of your life and losing a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean,
it stings.
But it's got to, I mean, and I know on the record, you'll never admit this, it feels so good that they didn't win their second. Because if they had won their second, especially if they'd done it quick, you would have been like, God, we really did suck.
Did you just say I'm a selfish guy?
I think that's what he implied.
No, I mean, come on.
No, you're right.
Right. I mean, Gabe, that's only human nature.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
These guys were so freaking good, and they only won 1. I mean, you guys got to 2, so you actually still have that over, this generation.
Well, and the other thing, because when they had the 100 years of the NFL, and the USA Today ranked you guys as a top 10 team, you guys can, we had the best team, we had the best group in Packers history. Had they won the Super Bowl in 11 or 12 or something like that, maybe they can push back.
But it's amazing, like that at 14, 17, 19, 20, 21, there were all these teams that were legitimately, whether they were the 1 seed or they got to host none of those teams made it. The only team that Aaron Rodgers did it with was a team that didn't play a home playoff game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
just crazy.
So to me, the other thing that's, I think the crazy thing that comes out of this is that Russell Wilson ends up as a Hall of Famer, right? Because he probably will. Right?
That's for another show.
or at least close. At least a discussion. I know you're wearing your Broncos orange today, so
he's got the orange.
It's the Horicon Hilltoppers or whatever.
Marshman. We're the Marshman.
But I don't think we would have ever thought leaving that day that Russell Wilson would have the career that he's had, and that Russell Wilson. I mean, how many Super Bowls for Russell Wilson?
1. He went to 2.
Right?
Yeah.
So Russell Wilson would end up in more Super Bowls than Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
We never would have thought that coming out of that
game. Certainly not. Boys, again, thank you. I know you're busy. Chewy, appreciate you sticking around.
They were saying I'm busy and Chewy. Just appreciate it.
Well,
I'm done for the day. He's just starting.
You're already here. Getting him to stick around the office this long is a little more difficult. But we appreciate everybody. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Repackables right here. I'm here talking with Truman McGee of Funky Fresh Spring Rolls. All right, so how did Funky Fresh get started?
Yeah, so 10 years ago, almost to the day, I was a laid-off construction worker, had to move back into my parents' house and restart my life. I was almost 30, going bald, overweight, all the things that men are afraid of. And I say, no, I need to do something with my life. So I started literally making healthier meals out of my parents' kitchen. From there, like my father was a Vietnam vet, like man's man. He loved these sweet potato and black bean spring rolls. And I thought, like, my dad loved it, anybody loved it. So we started getting them to farmers markets, festivals. We opened our first location in Sherman Phoenix in 2018. And kind of the rest is history. We kind of just grew from there.
Just kind of continuing to grow and grow and grow. So where do you have places now? What are we talking about? What's the next step for Funky Fresh?
So from the Sherman Phoenix, then COVID happened. We had to figure out how to readjust and pivot, and we started to sell our spring rolls frozen directly to customers. And then we got into some couple local grocery stores. And then in 2022, we partnered with Palermo's, and they've been helping us expand our product. And now we are found in over 150 grocery stores in Wisconsin and Illinois.
How many different flavors do you have?
We got 4 flavors. We got our buffalo chicken and kale. I say kale, yeah. Chicken, broccoli, and mushroom, chicken club. And we got a sweet potato black bean, which is our #1 seller.
So is the sweet potato and black bean, is that your favorite because of the tie with your family?
It has to be. It's the OG roll. You know, my son says I'm shaped like a sweet potato. So you know what? That's fine. And that's going to be my OG flavor. That, for me, it has the most sentimental value because it's the firstborn of the company.
So what are your next steps? What are you looking to do with Funky Fresh now?
So now what we've done is 150 store tests. We've got a lot of feedback from our customers and being able to improve our product. And now we're looking at expansion. So our big goal for 2024 is to be able to expand nationwide, get our product out, get the best version of our product out, and get it out across the country.
All right, hit us with those 4 flavors once again.
All right, we got our buffalo chicken and
buffalo
kale,
chicken and kale,
chicken club,
chicken
broccoli and mushroom,
chicken broccoli and mushroom,
and the sweet potato black bean.
Sweet potato black bean. You can find them all around the Milwaukee area, different grocery stores all over the place.
Woodman, Syndics, Outposts, festivals. You go to funkyfreshspringrolls.com to check out a full list of where all our stores are at.
All right. Well, Truman, thank you so much for the time, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Again, and thank you to Funky Fresh for being part of RePackables right here on ESPN